How? The question of the day. German football isn't a monarchy, but if it were, Bayern Munich would sit at the very top of the hill, far, far above everyone else. At the time of making this video, the Bavarian side has won 9 out of the last 9 Bundesliga titles. Out of those triumphs, they've won by 10 or more points on 8 separate occasions, and by more than 20 points twice. They've scored 820 goals compared to Borussia Dortmund in second with 666. They've won 237 games compared to Borussia Dortmund again in second with 178. And they've won not 1 but 2 trebles in this stretch of time. What? When you take a look at the numbers, you realize just how mental this is. So, again, how? First of all, how has this been allowed to happen? Second of all, how are the rest of the teams in the league supposed to compete? Today, we'll be taking a brief look into Bayern Munich's German dominance to get a better understanding of just what is going on there. So, how have Bayern Munich monopolized the Bundesliga? Yo, what is going on everyone? Hope you're all doing well. We're heading over to Deutschland for this one. If you like what you see, a simple tap of that little thumbs up goes a long way, but no pressure, of course. Let's jump right in. In the beginning, football in Germany had to go through reform after reform due to various reasons off the pitch and on. Though we're not going to go into the specifics of those reasons today, we're going to kick things off here with a brief look at the early days of the Bundesliga and Bayern Munich to show how things have gotten to the point that they're at today. The first recorded tournament organized by the German Football Association came about all the way back in 1903. Note that this was at amateur level though. Fast forward 50 years later in 1963, and after war, constant structuring, restructuring, and Germany winning the 1954 World Cup, with a team of amateurs by the way, the modern Bundesliga was born. Kind of. The league consisted of 16 teams at the time, but was built for expansion. As a matter of fact, the league was actually designed based on the already established English First Division, a league that had been around since the late 1800s. Anyway, the inaugural season of the Bundesliga was the 1963-64 season. Here's how the table looked at the end of that first season. Notice anything peculiar? Well, that's right, Bayern Munich weren't even in the league yet. Although it only took them 2 seasons to make the leap, as they gained promotion and entered the Bundesliga in the 1965-66 season. And only 3 years after that, they were champions. Upon closer inspection, it's not hard to see why. 2 words. The Axis, a term used to describe 3 of the very finest to ever wear the legendary Bayern strip: Gerd Müller, Franz Beckenbauer, and Sepp Maier, all players at the peak of their powers during this era. Regarding Beckenbauer and Müller in particular, between 1969 and 1976, there was only 1 season where neither of them featured on the Ballon d'Or podium. At least one of them was always in the running, with Müller winning once in 1970 and Beckenbauer winning twice in 1976 and in 1972. And this is what the podium looked like in 72. It's kinda mad. Oh, Beckenbauer was a centre-back, by the way. A sweeper, so a bit more of an attacking role, but still, he started from the back. Müller remains to this day the highest goal scorer in Bundesliga history with 365 goals. Now, Robin Lewandowski is a beast and is still active, but at the time of making this video, he would have to score 82 more goals in the German top flight to snatch the record. At 33 years old, that seems unlikely to happen, but based on the fact that he just scored 41 goals in a single season, who's to say that he can't do it 2 more times at the very least? Not me. The guy's an animal. And finally, Sepp Maier, an insane goalkeeper. He never featured on the Ballon d'Or podium throughout his career, possibly due to his position, but he did win the German Footballer of the Year award 3 times. These guys were no joke. Despite this, they didn't overwhelmingly dominate the Bundesliga like you may think in the early years. For starters, the first 7 seasons of the Bundesliga were essentially a free-for-all. 7 champions in the first 7 seasons. Talk about competitive. Over the next few decades, some very strong teams came and went. Borussia Mönchengladbach experienced a few periods of dominance where they won 2, even 3 league titles in a row. The same goes for Hamburg and even for Borussia Dortmund. These teams all had their time in the sun and understandably had to cool off after periods of blistering success, falling back and needing to rebuild in the process. However, there was one team that experienced success but just would not let up. Here's a fact. I wanted to say here's a fun fact, but I'm pretty sure there are very many people that would disagree. Of the 58 Bundesliga seasons that have been played to date, Bayern Munich have won 30, 25 more than Borussia Dortmund and Borussia Mönchengladbach, tied in second, each with 5. And as already mentioned, at the time of making this video, they have won the last 9 in a row. 9. They've also won 6 European Cups since the Bundesliga was formed. The only other German teams to win it since then are Dortmund and Hamburg, with 1 apiece. This is ridiculous. How is this kind of dominance even possible in this day and age? Well, if you've been paying attention to how football as an industry operates over the past few decades, the reasoning for this is simple: money and stature. Let's start off with money. Bayern are one of the most unique cases for a football club in the world from a financial perspective. In 2020, they announced that they had generated a profit on their annual turnover for 28 consecutive years. That was following a season riddled with setbacks for every club in the world due to the global illness. This is extremely impressive. Operating at a loss is very commonplace for even the largest businesses in the world for short periods, especially football clubs. For these guys to operate for so long, at the level that they're operating at, without even one blip, is just madness. Although it shouldn't be surprising that being successful for several decades translates to a metric crap ton of money. Thanks to various sponsorships, partnerships, and performance-based outcomes, they are in an extremely strong financial position. One indicator of this is that in 2005, Bayern took on a 25-year loan worth £276 million or 346 million euros for the construction of the Allianz Arena, their current stadium. In 2014, they paid off their loan in full, 16 years ahead of schedule. Basically, as of 2014, their stadium has been debt-free and is cash flowing even more money that they can use to make them an even larger force in world football. Additionally, they don't take bank loans for transfers like many other big European clubs do, opting to use the assets they already have to drive their transfer activities. This is one of the ways they're able to keep their expenditure extremely low, relative to other big European clubs, of course. This is especially commendable when you take into consideration the fact that Bayern's TV revenue and some of their other income streams pale in comparison to other top teams in Europe, particularly in comparison to teams in the Premier League. For context, Sheffield United finished in 20th place in the Premier League last season, earning about £91 million in TV revenue for their efforts despite being relegated. Bayern Munich won the Bundesliga and received just shy of £90 million. Although Bayern's business model dictates that their commercial revenue, i.e. sponsorships, merchandise, stadium tours, etc., is higher than most clubs in the world. Another point of note is that although Bayern are a globally recognized organization, they have historically focused on growing their brand in Germany in the past few decades, according to Bloomberg. This is something that they've been attempting to change in recent years, as evidenced by their increase in international preseason tours, as well as the fact that they've opened offices in China and New York City. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say here is that despite their already existing success, the Bayern brand is only going to get bigger and bigger in the future. Another explanation for why Bayern is flourishing is their transfer strategy. This explanation also ties into the stature of the club. Bayern do not spend crazy money, but are still able to sign the best players in the world, and more specifically in Germany. Sure, they pay their players large wage packets in line with the rest of Europe's elite, but not a heck of a lot in terms of transfer fees comparatively. Going back a bit, I obviously don't have the stats or figures to correlate the two, but I'm pretty sure that commercial focus on Germany doesn't hurt their conversion of young boys and girls, or rather future stars, to Bayern fans. In other words, if you're a football fan in Germany, more likely than not, Bayern is your team. Now this I do have stats for. In a survey by Statistica in 2020, it was found that Bayern Munich have the most fans in Germany, with just under 23% of the fan share in the country. To be fair, Borussia Dortmund trails just behind them at just under 22% of the fan share. Based on that, I'll concede that perhaps while statistically correct, the point I'm trying to make here isn't definitive. But on the same note, I'll ask you this. If you're a budding ambitious star and you crave silverware, given the chance, where would you go? To be fair, when it comes to actual professionals in the Bundesliga, you don't even necessarily need to be a fan of either of the two to make the obvious choice here, which conveniently brings us to the next point. Bayern are expert poachers. Robert Lewandowski, Mario Götze, Manuel Neuer, Mats Hummels, Mario Gomez, Leon Goretzka, Niklas Süle, Michael Ballack, only a small handful of German or Bundesliga players that Bayern have taken from direct rivals. If you're German or are connected to a German team, it's really hard to resist the Bayern appeal. And then, from the perspective of the other teams, what can they really do? Several of the players that Bayern signed from them come for cutthroat prices by European transfer standards. Robert Lewandowski, for example, probably Bayern's best and most important player over the past few years, signed from Borussia Dortmund in 2014 for the low price of nothing at all. So, in many cases, there isn't even the benefit of a cash injection to help bolster the team once a star player leaves for Bayern. At this point, you may be thinking, so why doesn't a Qatari, Abu Dhabi or Saudi billionaire buy a German team and make them a title contender? It seems to work pretty well elsewhere in Europe, right? Well, I've got news for you. 50 plus 1. A term that's been thrown around a lot, but that is obviously a foreign concept to anything football related outside of Germany. To put it simply, and I'm quoting this directly from the Bundesliga official website, under German Football League rules, football clubs will not be allowed to play in the Bundesliga if commercial investors have more than a 49% stake. In essence, this means that private investors cannot take over clubs and potentially push through measures that prioritize profit over the wishes of supporters. For the most part, this is a great mechanism. Bundesliga fans also have voting power to an extent on what goes on in the boardroom of their clubs, ensuring their interests are always taken into consideration. Borussia Dortmund CEO Hans-Joachim Watzke put it very well when describing how he felt about this rule. The 50 plus 1 rule does significantly more good than harm in Germany. Most clubs won't get a Roman Abramovich who in the first place wants to see Chelsea winning. Most of the investors want to earn money. And where do they get it from? The spectators. The rule obviously is in place to protect the culture first and has done a great job at doing so. It's also helped tremendously in keeping the fans engaged, immersed and passionate, as evidenced by the very high fan attendance at matches. In 2017, Bayern announced that they had recorded a 100% attendance rate in their 75,000 person capacity stadium for 5 seasons in a row. Even comparatively smaller sides such as FC Köln or SC Freiburg boast near perfect attendance records too. But, and of course there is a but, the 50 plus 1 ruling means outside investment is extremely limited. There have been attempts to game the system though. Since foreign investment is not allowed, in 2009, Red Bull, those guys that make energy drinks and sponsored a man to fall from outer space, yeah, those guys, did the next best thing. Red Bull Leipzig was formed in 2009 and began playing in the 5th division of German football, a division whereby German Football League rules have no jurisdiction. They then invested heavily in the squad and club infrastructure and by 2017 finished as runners-up in the Bundesliga. There are always loopholes, I guess. But here's the thing, when Bayern is around, nobody is safe. Just last season, Bayern won the league with Leipzig finishing 2nd. In typical Bayern fashion, these guys not only signed very arguably their biggest competition's 2 best players in Dayot Upamecano and Marcel Sabitzer, they took their coach too. That is tough. Before we move on, it's important to note that I've only covered a small portion of what has made Bayern such a formidable force over the years. There is so much more to their winning system. They almost exclusively employ ex-Bayern players in upper management positions to ensure continuity of their philosophy. Their recruitment isn't done just to weaken their opponents, but also to ensure succession in positions that need strengthening. David Alaba, Mats Hummels and Jerome Boateng out, Dayot Upamecano, Lucas Hernandez and Niklas Süle in. Philipp Lahm out, Joshua Kimmich in. Joshua Kimmich moves to defensive mid on occasion, Benjamin Pavard in to provide cover at right back, and so on and so forth. Bayern are extremely intelligent in how they operate and employ several tactics to maintain their success. So the important question at this point is, what next? How do you rectify a monopoly of this nature? The potential answer here is of course not simple to execute, and there is also not one single answer. I mentioned the TV distribution money Bayern received in 2020 earlier on. Yes, it pales in comparison to their English counterparts, but the distribution of TV revenue in the Bundesliga as a whole is extremely lopsided. So while Bayern Munich received a comparatively low £90 million for the 2020-21 season, 18th place Arminia Bielefeld received less than a third of that, just shy of £30 million. The problem is that in recent years in the Bundesliga, up to 70% of total TV revenue is distributed based on the previous 5 years' worth of performances, which of course means Bayern Munich are raking in the lion's share. In the Premier League, for example, there is a much more even distribution of TV revenue to all clubs. 50% of the domestic TV revenue is distributed equally amongst the teams, with 25% based on merit and facility fees respectively. Facility fees are how often a team's match is shown live. 100% of international TV revenue is distributed equally. There may be flaws in this system, but it's probably as close to fair as we can expect in this day and age. But, as a matter of fact, as of this season, it seems as though there will be a more even split of the overall revenue on the cards. A blended rate of equal distribution and merit-based distribution is where things seem to be heading. Only time will tell how big of a difference this will make. Another idea that's been floated around is that of a salary cap. This would of course mean that a Bayern Munich type would not be able to lure players away by offering significantly more in wages if the cap has been hit. Two proponents of this idea are Bundesliga CEO Christian Seifert and recently former German Football Association president Fritz Keller. Pretty heavy hitters when it comes to decision making, so we'll have to see if anything happens. Although the problem with this approach is that it would need to be continentally, even globally implemented to achieve the desired result. If I can only make 80k a week in Germany, I'll just head over to England, Spain or France where I can earn potentially 10 times that. If I'm the best, that is. Naturally, the bureaucracy behind implementing a salary cap likely makes it an unattractive option, but who knows? And finally, there are many different options that have been proposed over the years to help close the gap between Bayern and the rest. The most obvious is one that has been floated since the introduction of the ruling in 1998, abolishing or at the very least relaxing the 50+1 ruling. This is a contentious one. The problem with this quote-unquote solution is that it goes against the very nature of German footballing culture. If any change were to come about in the Bundesliga, I would suspect that 50+1 would be amongst the last to go. In any case, the gap between Bayern and the rest is frustratingly huge to many. Of course, football is unpredictable, and perhaps Borussia Dortmund or even RB Leipzig could have an incredible season and pip them to the title. But other than a flash-in-the-pan season, it's difficult to see another team rising up and overthrowing them indefinitely. I guess time will tell. And there we have it. What do you guys think of the Bundesliga? What do you think of Bayern Munich? Do you think anything can be done to loosen their stranglehold on German football? Feel free to leave any thoughts you have in the comments below. Anyway, that's all from me today. Really enjoyed putting this one together. Trust you're all having a fantastic day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.